Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And today I'm reviewing a film that's currently in theaters. The movie that I'm referring to is the 2025 film Him, directed and co written by Justin Tipping. So, when it comes to the broad general concept of Him, I like the idea of there being a sports horror movie, because I can't think of any other ones that have been made so far anyway. Let me tell you more about the concept for the film, and maybe this will be something that you'll want to check out for yourself. So, Him stars Tyreek Withers as the main character of Cameron Cade. Now, Cameron grew up idolizing football and football players, and especially one in particular named Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans. Now, even from being a small child, Cameron's father was trying to train and mold him into becoming the next GOAT when it came to football. The story then jumps ahead years later, where Cameron is now the number one draft pick. In fact, he might even be able to get picked up by the team that he's wanted to join all along, known as the Saviors. Unfortunately for Cameron, a crazy fan attacks him one night, causing him to not only get a concussion, but to now be ineligible for the tryouts. However, though, it does end up looking like his agent pulls some strings and actually gets him his own personal audition with the team. So Cameron heads off to the training camp, where he ends up not only meeting but getting trained by Isaiah White himself. This is incredible, and it appears that this might be the perfect timing as Isaiah is moving closer and closer to retirement. Now, a training camp in general is going to be rough, but this seems to be a little unorthodox as they start to train him in some very different, violent, and very strange ways. So, will Cameron ever say that enough is enough, or will the thought or possibility of becoming the next GOAT be enough to push him through all of this? So, as I mentioned earlier, I do like the idea and concept of this, especially creating a new genre of sports horror, because well, in general, I love horror movies, so if ever they come up with a new genre, I think it's a fun way to try something different. Unfortunately, though, I just felt like this one was not executed well. It had a good idea, because now you're mixing the worlds of football, where you have the cult of personality of the next big person, the big athletic superstar, the GOAT. And then you're also mixing in the actual cult aspects of what's happening in this movie. I will also say I felt like it was a little hard pressed to even call this a horror film. Like it definitely has aspects of it. There were a couple of moments that were kind of creepy, but this very much did more border on like a very intense drama. Some of the acting in the movie was really good in my opinion. Like I thought Marlon Wayans did a great job. Tyreek Withers, I don't think he necessarily did a bad job, but it did feel just a little bit wooden, at least like his representation of the character. And I don't know, it even though I could tell like he technically was like a good guy, I just never really fully got onto his side or really wanted him to succeed in this situation. I don't know. There just wasn't enough for me to really get my hooks into the character and really care more about him. I also want to mention the ending, which I'm not going to reveal anything about it, but I really do feel like it fell flat. It did not end on a good note, at least in my own opinion. One other thing I do want to mention when it comes to this film is it is very heavy-handed with its symbolism, which does make sense. I mean, you are mixing the worlds of football, which in itself is almost its own religion, and then, of course, religious cults. So you kind of have to have symbolism. But for me, every once in a while, it just kind of pushed a little farther over the line and caused it to feel almost too artsy, at least in my own opinion. So, at least for me on my scale, I'm going to give him a 2 out of 5. Maybe you'll enjoy this one more than I did, so I do recommend checking it out while it still is in theaters. Now, if you've already seen this film, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. By the way, I am just curious if anyone out there can think of another sports horror film that already does exist, let me know what those are in the comments.